Demetria.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Danae.
Here.
Patrick.
Here.
Brandon.
Here.
Sonia. All right, so now if everyone can look over tonight's agenda for approval. Okay.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Kane moves. Brandon seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstaining? Seeing none, the motion passes. Now if everyone could look at the minutes from last week. Brandon?
I move to approve the minutes from last week.
Brandon moves, Eric seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, motion passes. All right, now we'll jump into reports. As the chair, I just wanted to say, ask your questions. Have fun tonight as we vote. Anyway, advisor.
I do not have any reports.
Two items. One, and this is not necessarily a report, but a question. We will be having committee photos coming up. I don't know if they've been scheduled yet. So those will be coming up, and you'll get a notice in advance. So that way we can get those posted on the website. It'll be professional photos, they'll be individual and then a group one. And so we'll send a heads up once we get that scheduled. To be adequately prepared.
Will that be, would that be this quarter or eventually?
Depends on availability. The other one is just to continue the conversation that we were having last week, if the group would like to continue it, regarding whether or not we wanted to have groups do report backs as a standard. If so, then we can look maybe as a small subcommittee into what that would look like, just so we have it uniform, or whether we just want to make requests from specific groups to do report backs. So just wanted to open that up since you all had a unanimous about it.
So is there any discussion on report backs?
Maybe we could have like a requirement if it goes over X amount of dollars, have you come back and goes over a certain amount of money and present it or a little worksheet or something.
Joey?
My general recommendation would be the requirement, if we were to do it, that the requirement would be that they submit a form giving a report back that then you all can have to look over, but that it'd be optional if they choose to come. Again, just thinking of the number we had last year of 59 requests. If each of those also came and did report backs, just trying to be mindful of the time for you all, but also want to make sure you all get the information. And if we do leave it open, similar to how it is now, any group can come and do a report back if they request, but that'd be my recommendation.
I'd like to look into having a form for them to fill out that we then can look at on our own and not, wasting anyone's time, but also go through the questions and
Is there a need to kind of showcase what we're doing? Because OUR has the requirement of if you get funding from them, you have to present that at source in some way. Could we either piggyback on that or have our own day where people come back and present? It could be like a poster sort of format or something, so that I agree that if you have everybody coming back or a lot of people coming back, that I don't know if we have enough meetings and times for something like that. So the form would be great if they could come on like a certain day where like that is what we're doing, is people are, they have little poster sort of presentation, people can walk around to it. That might be a compromise sort of situation.
Please.
I got a question first. Are we trying to have them report back after they've used the funding? Is that the intent? Because some of the funding requests could be like student wages, which would go throughout the year, so I'm just trying to, or, you know, maybe would it be at the end of, and sometimes it crosses fiscal years, so it could even be, you know, in the summer or in the fall of the following year, so. Is there a deadline?
I don't think so, and I wouldn't personally need to know, I wanna know about the rate, because that's expected, people's wages are required to go up by the law. So, well, I don't want to speak, but like, I'd rather know about the conferences that someone's going to than say,
But I think that is valid because while the majority of what we get is conferences and travel and programs, again, we have groups who can come in and request adding new student positions or staff positions and those. So again, as we're creating if we're to create a uniform response, to be mindful of that. And that's kind of part of the discussion is, do we want something uniform or do we want it specific to different types? What we're asking case by case. And this is just discussion. There's going to not have to be a decision made in any way.
Any further, oh, Eric?
Can we form a committee, a subcommittee to talk about it?
Yes.
To come up with recommendations to the full committee?
Is there a motion on the table to form a committee? Eric motions,
So
is
moved.
there a second? Demetria? Okay, awesome. So Eric moves, Demetria seconds. Is there any discussion on forming a subcommittee? No? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstain? All right, so with that, a subcommittee will be formed.
On that note, simply so we have it and it moves forward, is there anyone who would be interested in serving as the chair of that subcommittee?
I'll
So Eric will be the chair of that. If anyone is interested in serving on that, if you can let Eric know by the end of today, and then we can share that with Renee. You can think about it throughout the rest, and then Eric will kind of get that set up and we'll report back to the committee. And we'll work with Kane too as government. I believe that's all I have.
So first call for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, let's go into old business, subsection A, subsection 1, voting on the swing cats instructor, supplemented funding request 1901. Is there any discussion? Joey?
And so I'm not making discussion on this, knowing this is the first meeting where we've had the deliberation discussion part. The way this typically will go is it'll open up to you all if there are comments about it, whether it's asking questions among the committee to clarify things, to point out if this is something you feel we should fund, concerns about funding it, and kind of discuss amongst the group. At which point then, if someone does want to, can make a motion either to fund it in the amount requested, fund it in whatever amount based on the conversation it is. If there is no discussion or no motion, then essentially the request dies, and stays on the table. But just so people are kind of what the process looks like.
Okay.
And so, to understand this also, that the requesters don't need to be here tonight.
Nope. Yeah.
They might be, but this is really a discussion for us and not them.
Exactly. Yeah.
If they're here, can we still ask questions, or that's over? That was last week.
We have the ability to. We typically try and refrain from that,
Yeah.
just because again, not everyone is here, but oftentimes they'll be in the galley, in which case Shelby would just have to recognize them if there was something on there.
But if they want to speak, they're not allowed.
Not unless we choose to
Okay.
acknowledge. Yeah, that would be during the public comment part
Okay.
normally.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they may want to respond to a conversation, or if there is a question amongst us, in which case it's up to the chair on whether or not we allow them to.
Demetria?
So I can start the discussion then? Yeah, okay. For this request, I thought it was really interesting to see how the club has grown over the years. I know that specifically I've known a bunch of people that were never participants in swing dancing before, and then coming to Central, and then having an instructor to teach them how to do all of these things has been really impactful for a bunch of students.
I think in terms of what they're asking for just 1 year, compared to like Lucia was talking about the benefits to the students that go to student caps that I have also seen, is pretty much worth that.
Great.
Yeah, I was impressed with the proposal, I mean, for the amount of money and the number of students that it reaches and that are participants. It's really a good bang for the buck, I think. It seemed like it was.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion, please? Demetria?
I motion to allot $1,500 to swing cats for instructor costs.
Kane seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of funding a swing cats instructor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? All right, so the motion passes. Moving on to supplemental funding request 1902, Family and Consumer Sciences Annual Conference. The table is now open for discussion.
In terms of like effort put into by the club already, with the graduate and undergrad club, and working together on that to send as many people to a conference, and only requesting a little amount from S&A. I think they put in effort and really want to make an impact within their clubs and their departments. So I think this is well worth it.
Alex?
Yeah, I think they're taking initiative with their fundraisers as well. So I feel like they're doing
Eric?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the full requested money, $4,611.
So there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? I second. Demetria seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of funding for the full amount? All those opposed? Any abstaining? All right, so the motion does pass the full amount. All right, so supplementary funding request 1903. The College Media Convention for Pulse and Observer. The table is now open for discussion. Demetria?
For seeing the awards and the different recognition that both of these groups have gotten going through this conference and through their work, I think this is definitely a way for them to get the recognition for the hard work that they put in throughout the whole year. And I do believe that they're going to bring back what they've learned to the groups. And I think that's really beneficial for us to support.
Demetria?
It was also nice to see that they committed some of their own money too and have buy-in with that.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion on the table? Demetria?
I motion to allot the full amount of $6,562 to the Observer College Media Convention.
Is there a second? Kane seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of funding for the full amount? Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, and with that, the motion, the full amount passes. Now, supplemental funding request 1904, the Rising Stars Conference for the IEEEs. Discussion is now open. Joey.
This is just a comment on protocol, just so you all know. You all have the ability, just so you know, I appreciate you all going in the manner we are. As part of your comment, you can make the comment and then also put the motion at the end of your comment if you so choose. It does then make us move forward at that point, so, but if it looks like no one else has comments, or if everyone's kind of exhausted the comment, you can make your comment and go with the motion just again, as point of procedure.
They pursued funding from a lot of other sources. That's nice to see.
Seems like a good beneficial conference. I motion that we support them at $2,260.
So Greg moves, is there a second? Dane seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of funding for the full amount? All those opposed? Any abstaining? That, the motion passes. Now, supplemental fund request 1905, the Big Band Tour of China and Taiwan. The table is open for discussion.
I think it's like a cool opportunity for these students to go and get another taste of musical culture in a different country all across the world. So I think it's pretty important.
Brandon.
And on top of that, all of them are they're upperclassmen as well as have leadership roles pertaining to the instruments they play. So they're going to come back and teach kind of the underclassmen and everyone else in their club what they learned kind of through maybe like the type of music they're playing over there, as well as like what they learned, and they kind of like pass it on to the other people, which I think it's more like they get like the immediate impact, but then like everyone else at the university benefits from these 4 people going on this trip.
I agree with Brandon for the most part. However, we don't really have like a way of knowing that that's going to be happening, especially with them being upperclassmen. The experience that they have may or may not positively impact the music department as a whole. We can't exactly be sure of that, and that's one of my big concerns. As well as just the extent of the amount of money that they're requesting. It's just a lot for students. Seems a little excessive. Helping students would be awesome, but
Alex.
Very keen on the amount, especially since they have not request from academic senate yet. So, I mean, I think it's it's a good program, but I think we just have more discussion on how much.
Joey.
Lacey, I know you touched on this, but can you remind us when it comes to us being able to fund visas? One, because it could be this, but also for future ones that may come up, what is allowable versus?
Well, we're still waiting, I've requested through some documentation from this group to get more detail about whether or not it's actually just for the 2 weeks they're gone. Basically, if it's just for the 2 weeks that they're traveling, I would say that is something we could fund, but we need to make sure that's actually what those visas are for, because every visa is different where you travel. So I don't have that documentation right now, so that's on the table.
Here.
I'd like to make a motion for $9,716.
So there's a motion on the table, is there a second? Brandon, is there any discussion? Demetria.
Can I ask why that amount?
Well, we shouldn't be subtracting money for certain reasons. I just think that with the question on the visa and that they haven't responded to you in which has now been a week since they were here, I think that too many questions on that, because I understood them when they did their presentation that this visa would go beyond the 2 weeks.
Yes.
And just my understanding from what you said, that would then preclude those visas as part of the cost.
Yeah, and so just to point out, I actually requested it when we met on the 15th of October. So it has been a little bit, all of that. And I also am waiting for confirmation from the International Studies Office to make sure it's approved, and I haven't received that yet. That doesn't mean they haven't done their documentation, it probably just means it's not completed, so there's a couple of things hanging out on this request.
Tanya.
And I don't know if anybody knows this, but would they be eligible to get money from Academic Senate and how much?
It's limited, is it 15?
Yeah, I think so.
1,500. But it's the entire music department, and I think the reason that they didn't necessarily go to SAS is because of the high dollar figure. Academic Senate has the least amount of funding of all the groups, and also it maxes out for the department. So that's probably the idea behind it.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion on the motion of funding it for $9,760? Eric?
I'd like to call the previous question.
All right, so that means we vote now. So all those in favor of voting for the motion of $9,716? All those in favor? All right, all those opposed? All those abstaining? All right, so the motion does pass. All right, so now supplemental funding request 1906, the GEN conference. Is there any discussion?
I thought it was really interesting how they selected the students to go. Having them speak in front of the club really shows their intentions of why they wanted to go, not so much, oh, we're all on board, we're all going to go. And then making sure that all the students are throughout their time here at Central. So some first-year students are getting the opportunity to go as well, which I think is really interesting. Yeah.
Eric?
I understand their reasoning for not requesting money from their club account, but I'm concerned that they're going to come and request other money in the future from S&A and still maintain the balance they are in their club account. With the amount of money that's in there.
This is one, and again, I have no opinion on this, but just so that way there's a standard. This one is in the request that they are asking for funding for the food. And as we talked about during the training, it is something that is allowable, but is not something the committee has done in the past typically. So mostly wanted you all to make note of that so you all can have that discussion so we can be consistent moving forward with this year.
Greg?
A couple points. One is I think that's a good point on the food, that maybe we should maybe stay consistent with that we're not funding food. And then also on Eric's point about the large amount of money in the club account, and they raise funds and they have that for a specific reason because of the need for instruments and some things that are expensive. And if we're going to hold that, I mean, there's clubs that are coming forward that have no money in their account or very little. So are we going to penalize them because they've been doing fundraising versus somebody that hasn't? So I don't know if for me, that's not a consideration necessarily, the amount that's in the balance.
And I do want to say just so, and I know we talked about this with the training pieces, because I think these are relevant for you all to discuss. Although keep in mind, we don't have a way of dictating, so we wouldn't be able to say, we're going to fund this and you have to fund the rest from your club account, or you have to do, it leaves it open to the groups. Again, we can't tell them how to spend their money on those. But again, it's something for you all to discuss. Whatever we don't fund in these, obviously they would have to find some means for covering that. But that's up to them on how they make those decisions.
Alex?
I agree with staying consistent on whether we are funding food or not. So I'm motion to allocate $1,100. Or, sorry, I got it.
The 6720?
What else subtracting that?
The 1650. Okay, so subtract 600. Who does math?
So they see
Where
Excel.
$5,070.
Great.
All right, so Alex moves for $5,070. King seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion?
So this means that we would keep that same idea for the rest of the funds and not support the group. Okay. Just
And I would bring that up and remind you all if it
Okay.
seemed like we were, and again, you all can still make the decision. And I would say, especially if we have specific requests that come forward that have extenuating circumstances, you all may want to make those allowances, but you'll hear throughout the year multiple times of just reminders of what we've consistently done, but it's still up to you all what we do.
Tanya?
This might not be appropriate. Is there a list of these things of what has been classically done for new people, or are we just gonna learn as we go on that particular aspect? Okay.
Some of them we covered during the training
Okay.
pieces, and some of them will randomly come
We'll
up
see
to
where
where
Okay,
it'll be reliant on memory.
okay,
And memory.
thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? See none, all those in favor of funding for $5,070? All those opposed? Any abstaining? So the motion passes. So now let's move on to new business supplemental funding requests. And request 1907, the American Geophysical Union Conference. Do 10 minutes to present and then 10 minutes to talk.
no.
Other presentation.
Okay, so we're requesting funding to go to a conference in DC. It's called the AGU Conference. It stands for American Geophysical Union. So my name is Ashley, this is Courtney and Lita. And the conference is from December 10th to the 14th. So AGU is an interdisciplinary research conference, which means they cover a broad range of subjects that people present on, including atmospheric and ocean sciences, solid earth sciences, hydrologic sciences, space sciences, and geohealth. More than 24,000 people are going this year, according to their website. And AGU publishes weekly in a newspaper called EOS, and they also publish 19 peer-reviewed scientific journals. So it is a pretty important conference to go to. So what we do, we research the effects of soot on the environment and in the biological setting. Soot is something people usually think of as the particles that come out of your exhaust of your car. So I look at how it affects different cycles in the environment, and Daniel and Courtney look at what happens once we breathe it in and different biological settings. So I have been doing research since an undergrad. So some of my work was funded by National Science Foundation, or NSF, and currently it's funded by graduate school studies for both Daniel and I. And with NSF funding, we got to use instruments that are in the Murdoch Research Laboratory, that's in Science Stream. And we also got to go to UW to do a lot of research there as well for a couple quarters. So to the best of our knowledge, the research we're presenting hasn't been done before, and it's unique, so I think it's a great part. Okay.
So this here is kind of a breakdown of our budget. So we requested funds from SAS, and we received 900, and we used that to purchase our airfare already, and that came out to $170. So we still have $30 remaining from that budget request. Our hotel rooms, Ashleen and Courtney will be sharing a room, which comes out to $1,120. And I found 2 other students that are going to the same conference room, the geology department here at CWU. Got into contact with them, and I will be sharing a room with both of them to kind of cut down on costs. Our transportation, we overestimated on the amount that we would need, because at first we thought, we would be taking like Ubers to places or taxis. We weren't sure if there was like a transit system. And then upon further research on that, we found that there was a metro where we could use the metro $5 per day, and that's to and from the conference. And for 5 days, which would be $25 for 3 people, which would be $75. And we put an extra $25 on there. That's for cost to take like an Uber from the from the airport to the hotel, or from the hotel back to the airport when we're leaving the conference. Our registration cost of $675 comes from, it takes $135 for an undergraduate to apply for registration for the conference, and $270 for a grad student. And since we're both graduate students, it takes $275 each for me and Ashley to apply for the conference. And then the $180 for the abstract was just to get our work submitted to be able to present at the conference. And that was $60 for each of us. And then we were seeing if we could get food funded. You know, we're not trying to go anywhere expensive. We're just trying to see if we could get a little bit of help on this. And we did it based off of the per diem rates that are on the central website. And you can see some of these costs are pretty high. We're just thinking about $20 a meal, which would amount to $900 for all 3 of us. And this is just like an overestimate of the food. You know, we don't really expect to spend that much on food. And we've also requested funds from the graduate travel funds, which would be $400 for each of us. And that's in process. And Courtney requested $500 from the Office of Undergraduate Travel Funds. So the AGU conference covers on funding opportunities for the CWU Chem department. And like we said, our research is unique, and a lot of funding agencies will be here at this conference. So it'll kind of throw our name out there, you know, that we're a research-oriented school. And all of our projects are pretty unique. Nobody's really doing this kind of research right now. So that'll also be a unique thing to bring forward to this conference. And then this could also allow us to use the Murdoch Lab in Science 2 a little bit more, because currently it costs to use the instruments in the Murdoch Lab in Science 2. And a lot of our students and different research groups don't have the funding to use those instruments because they cost per hour. So if we were able to get more funding opportunities from getting our names out there at this conference, we could have more students using this facility we have right here on campus that we can't use currently because we don't have enough money to use it. And this conference could shape our current research and our future research projects, because we get to talk to experts in the field, which can kind of help lead and shape our research. And a lot of the times research projects are kind of stem from previous projects that have been done before. So my project stems from a project that a graduate student did last year and graduated. So by shaping our research projects, this is shaping future research projects to come. And then, and we also get to observe current research that's being done in the field. So by observing this current research, we can also come up with new projects for future students to do here at Central.
While we're going to be in DC, we requested to meet with the senators for, so I think that'd be kind of cool to meet them and talk about Central and the research we do. And hopefully get more opportunities there as well.
So the other things that we're looking forward to doing during our trip is building relationships with the scientists that we meet there, with other organizations. Every evening they're offering tours of the AGU headquarters. They've kind of brand new renovated it to be very sustainable things, and there's research facilities that we can tour and see how other people are doing their research, what kinds of instruments they're using, and make relationships so that down the road, if something comes up, we always just send out as an email that says, hey, you know, I haven't talked to you, but it's been maybe 3 years, but I met you at this AGU conference, and, you know, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about funding a project for this? You know, it's a huge deal to just have a contact and a way to just reach out to someone. And so we're hoping that we can do that and kind of be ambassadors for CWU and generate that relationship for the college to have that relationship with that by presenting our research and having our own research to talk about with other students and scientists, that we'll be kind of throwing our name out there to attract other students, to attract other researchers that are instructors, kind of keep CWU flourishing in that way too. There's also being held a whole nother separate division within the conference that has to do primarily with being able to discuss science on a public level and being able to communicate effectively with the public about complex scientific topics, which is a huge deal because most of us in the science community really kind of struggle with that and being effective in communicating things so that people really understand. And so that's one of the things that is kind of vital for some of the grant applications that are out there as far as proving that the research that we're doing is relevant and can be communicated effectively to the public and valued by the public. And so those are things that we can improve on while we are at the conference. Should we do the next?
Thank you for listening to our request. If you guys want us to elaborate on any of the aspects, we can do that.
Lucia?
I just wanted to know how much it costs to actually use the Murdoch lab that you were talking about.
It depends on what instrument, so not to use the lab itself, but whatever instrument you're using. It ranges from $5 to $30 per hour. And when you do analysis on any instrument, it takes a while, so it adds up real fast.
Has this been a conference CWU that's attended like historically in the past few years?
For chemistry department, I don't think so, but I do know geology.
Brandon?
Yeah, could you tell me more about like the Outstanding Student Presentation Award and how much weight that kind of carries in your profession?
Well, there will be a lot of people competing for that award. And so to win it would be a great honor, and that would really earn us some prestige here. I think that more than anything, the purpose that it serves is really to foster an atmosphere of competition where it raises the bar for all of the presentations there to make sure that everyone is presenting their research at a really high standard with absolute clarity. I don't know what the odds are as far as us bringing that back, but that's something that we are really striving for. Did that actually answer your question? Yeah.
Alex?
The offices of the senators, have they reached out and
Yes.
been able to see?
Yes, we booked for Tuesday. They would love it.
Okay.
Yes.
Both of them?
I'm not sure. I don't know that
Yeah.
information, but they said they're happy to give us a tour and let us know. Yeah.
Lucia?
So are your presentations from the photos, are they all posters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll each have our own poster to present at the conference.
Any further questions? Greg?
There was a really large number of attendees.
24,000.
24,000.
Globally.
Wow. How many posters do you
There was
Oh, no, there's a picture though, it shows like,
We've never
ton
been
of
for conference,
posters.
but it looks.
Wow, it looks
Yeah,
pretty
it's-
big.
And they're usually all day, so you usually tell them the time they're gonna be there, and you go during that time to talk to whoever's presenting. They go throughout the whole week.
And it makes for thousands of options for us to go and learn about. And then we do have a slotted, I think it's a 2-hour slot for competing with that OSPA for someone to come and kind of give a more formal presentation of their work.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll vote on this next week. Next up is supplemental funding request 1908, the Phi Alpha Theta Regional Conference.
thanks you guys. My name is Adam Robertson. I'm here representing the History Club, which is also the Tau Iota chapter of Phi Alpha Theta, which is a national history organization. We are requesting funding to go to the regional conference for Phi Alpha Theta in Pocatello, Idaho in April. We are requesting funding for up to 30 students, both graduate and undergraduate, to go and present papers and also listen to other students from other universities around the region present their papers. The projection of 30 is definitely a higher boundary. Last year we had about 18 people and that was in Spokane, so we're probably going to have fewer this year. So probably not going to need all of the money that we hope to get from it. History Club, as I said, is also the school chapter of Phi Alpha Theta. These are just some of the events that we have done this year and did do last year. So we have a weekly presence on campus, and all are welcome. If you guys are interested, Tuesdays at 9. Benefits and objectives. It's obviously beneficial for Central to have representation at this conference, to have students going. Last year we were the biggest university represented at that conference with 18 students. We also one of our students won last year and the year prior, so it's good for us to have our faces out there getting some wins for Central. There are prizes given for best undergraduate, graduate, and best overall paper. It's also a great way for the students to learn from other students in the field of history. You basically are going and listening to papers that other people have written the entire 2 days of the conference, and so you get to learn a lot of interesting things and see what other people are doing, talk to students from other schools, talk to professors from other schools, just really recharge your enthusiasm for stuff. Who will go will be decided by our faculty advisor, Dr. Lacey Farrell. She'll set out a call for papers. She'll read them all, judge them, and decide which ones are worthy for representing Central Washington University, and then those chosen will get to go along to the conference and present. Our fundraising, last year we had a book and bake sale, which you can see raised a little over $350. We're also doing a pop-up book sale this month on the 26th and 27th, just downstairs on the Cirques, if you guys are looking for books. We'll be around. Then we're going to do another full-on book and bake sale in February as well. We're going to raise some money there. Also on that note, we're also getting funding, or seeking funding at the very least, from the Academic Senate and Club Senate. So the money that we are asking for, we need for conference registration, for food, for motor pool to get us to and from Pocatello, Idaho, which, if you're not familiar, is down in the southeastern corner of Idaho, so it's a long haul. That is obviously an estimated cost. We're not sure exactly how much it's going to cost. And the hotel rooms, we're going to smash people in like sardines, 4 to a room, like we did last year. You also have to pay for the Phi Alpha Theta membership for all the students presenting. And again, since the 30 is the optimistic estimate, it's probably going to be actually lower than that at the end of the day. That is all I have.
Any questions? Why the number 30?
That is a good question. I'm actually not sure why we chose 30 as our estimate.
I can address that. We last year had over 20 students who submitted abstracts with the initial call for papers and wanted to go. And then just through scheduling issues or not getting their papers finished, we ended up with 18. And we're hoping that was the largest contingent we had taken in quite a few years. And we're hoping to build on that momentum. A lot of the students we took, like Adam, for example, who didn't mention, he's the student who won the best undergraduate paper at the conference last year, but he was a junior and this year he's a senior. So we're hoping we'll get repeat attendance as well as bringing in new people, and we thought we'd estimate on the high side just so we could include as many students as we could.
So you had 18 last year, and you mentioned that you were thinking it would be less this year because you're going further, but you're estimating at 30.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be less. I'm expecting it to be more.
We're hoping for more, but just the sense I get, that was me personally based on the conversations that I've had.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is in April.
Yes.
Appreciate you coming so early, and, you know, that's fantastic. And, and rare. Is there a date where you will know the numbers? I mean, when is that deadline to kind of get a better grip on how many?
On the specifics,
Yeah.
I know that, I mean, Dr. Farrell will know better, the call for papers was towards the end of winter quarter, and then we had, I think, a solid date at the beginning of spring quarter.
Basically sometime in March is when I have to submit everything to the conference.
Okay.
And then we have the hard and fast numbers, but because that comes so late, we like to get this up in advance. And I think last year I don't remember how many exactly we secured funding for, but we ended up under the number we had secured funding for.
We applied for 24, I believe.
And part of the pitch and part of the reason why we try to estimate high is that we want to tell students up front that we can guarantee that we can cover all of your expenses. Because a lot of our students, they hear, oh, that sounds like fun, but there's no way I can afford it. I'm not even going to put my name forward. And so we can say from the get-go, look, we have funding. It will cost you nothing out of pocket, which we were able to do last year. We had a lot more people who were like, oh, sure, I would love to do that.
Yeah, I know specifically from personal experience, if cost had entered the equation for me, I probably would have said, oh, that sounds fun, but I don't know if I can really make that work, especially because I did have opportunity costs of having to take off time work to do it. So on top of that, you know, knowing that at least the cost of the conference itself would be covered was really a great incentive and paid off for me, and I think the school.
Demetria? What are the papers usually, is it just any history topic they sit on?
Yeah, so the paper guidelines are, they're 10-page papers that you submit to the conference, and you have some students beef out papers that they wrote for other classes. Some students have to pare theirs down. I know one of the papers that I was in a presentation for was someone's like master's thesis that they had pared down from 100-something pages, which didn't work out all that well. But yeah, they're from any broad range of topics, and then the folks who are throwing the conference organize into panels of 2, 3, or 4 people who have roughly similar topics of their papers, and then they present in panels that take about an hour, and then yeah, so it's just kind of you get to learn a lot of different stuff, a lot of different topics.
And if I could just add to that, they then pair those topics with faculty from all the participating universities.
Yes.
They try to line up specialties. So each panel has a discussant and a chair. So I was a discussant on a panel, and so I asked the students. So it's conducted like a scholarly history conference.
Greg?
And every student then that goes is
Every
is
student
presenting.
goes is presenting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So maybe just a question for Joey or Lacey, that in a situation like this, do we, approve a certain dollar amount? Do we calculate this per student, so then when it comes up, then it's actually reflective of that number? How does that work? Is that
The committee can do that, if they'd like to. Sometimes it creates a bit of chaos, because it'll be, if we do that, then some of the expenses will fluctuate. You know, this is all based off estimates, right? Because there's probably nothing that has been purchased yet. I would almost consider just saying a flat amount for the whole request, because if they do have limited amount and only 20 go, the rest of the funding will come back to us.
Well, yeah, right, it doesn't actually go in.
Yeah. We will get it.
because it's an expense claim
Yeah, reimbursed.
after the fact, so that it's.
So if they only spend 6,000, we'll get the 1,000 and some back to the SNA.
Yeah, so if we approved 10, they would, and then it was 6, I get it.
Yeah,
Well, and the
I'm
other
new.
part I would throw in there to answer is, we want to do the dollar figure because you could do the estimate saying you only want to fund the amount that would be equivalent to 10 students. They could still take 30 and split that out over the 30 and then have them cover that. So we try and not get into that nuanced of it, but again, I know you touched base on there saying that you had a number of fundraisers coming up. Is the intent then, whatever you raise for that will go towards helping support the cost for this trip, or?
Yeah, I mean, if need be, I mean, obviously in a perfect world, we would be able to get all the funding that we need for that and then be able to use our fundraise money for other events that we do, like the posters that I showed, and we're gonna try and bring in guest speakers as well, like I think spring quarter, we're trying to bring in a professor from YVCC. And so we would use club funding to pay for their transportation costs and stuff like that. So the fundraising is more of a general effort, but yeah, for sure, I mean, yeah.
There was, and I could be wrong, a discrepancy between what I've got here for the requested amount and what I saw up here. Which one are we?
So there was 2 requests submitted, and I think I just uploaded the wrong one.
Okay, thanks.
The amount that it will be is $7,857.
Okay.
I think everybody's. Yep.
Okay,
There's,
just checking.
We'll get that updated. And
Good
I
catch.
have it. I was really confused.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a presentation for supplemental funding request 1909, the Future Safety Leaders Conference. All right, my name is Julia. This is Fidel. We're both students from the American Society of Safety Professionals student chapter. We're here to request some additional funding for sending 3 students to the Future Leadership Safety Conference in Chicago. This is a really great opportunity for not only the individual students that get to go, but for our program as a whole. Central has one of the highest rated safety programs, not only on the West Coast, but in the nation. So it's a really great opportunity to connect with current industry professionals, learn about the new and emerging issues, and kind of the trending topics just in safety in general. And those students that attend are also able to bring back all the information and those connections with professionals and companies that support Central to the students, not only in the ASSP chapter, but the program as a whole.
So we are asking for funding because the flights that we anticipated, they costed more than we thought. On October 9th, we asked Academic Senate for $700. And on the 10th, we asked Club Senate for $400, and that would have covered the cost for the flights and transportation. But on the next day, on the 11th, the prices for the flights went up, and that ended up being $270 for the flights for each person. And the flights ended up being $810 in total. And with that difference in cost, we're asking for $410.70.
Do you guys have any questions? Eric?
Are you leaving tonight?
So the students who have already left.
Oh, you two personally aren't going?
No, we're here representing the students that attended the conference. Demetria?
How are those 3 students selected? Do you know?
The students were selected through an application process, so I believe it was right at the beginning of the year.
It was during the summer. They were asked to write
a one-page paper that was submitted to our
club advisor.
Yeah, the club advisor. So everybody submitted the paper. The club advisor reviewed it along with some ASSP student chapter members, and they were selected based off of what they could kind of bring to their table, leadership skills, and we were able to send 2 seniors and a junior as well. So the junior is able to kind of expand and build upon that experience and bring it into the next year. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on this next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's move into other business and communications received. I have not received any.
Are we still, let's see, this is not next, yet next week. Testing everybody. We are meeting next week. Do you want food? Do you guys want to order food?
Yeah.
What's the argument against?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next that was on the list was sandwiches. It was like is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
This is the second call for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Eric?
Sorry. I'd like us to chat about the food part of, whether we want to support that or not. And I'm only bringing it up because there are some groups that are, for example, the jazz band that's going to, China, Taiwan, supporting them for food, it seems relevant. But then, obviously we reduced the amount for the Gen conference. And I guess my question is, or maybe we'll discuss is that something we just blanket not want to support food, or I have to really.
So,
Just to clarify, we didn't fund the China trip for food.
Okay, thank
No
you.
one has been funded for
so
food. Yep.
Cool.
and there's no reason we couldn't. What I've heard in the past for discussions is things along the lines of, well, you've got to eat whether you're here or not.
Right.
Granted, it costs more to eat in New York City probably on a vacation than it does company at home. But there's no reason we couldn't fund it. It's just,
We couldn't fund past per dia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I just want to know what everyone's thoughts are.
Demetria?
My thoughts on it were definitely, this is from personal experience, every conference I've ever gone to is pretty much you pay, like that's the only part you have to pay for yourself. So for me, sometimes it seems like, oh, that's the person's buy-in is that you're gonna pay for that. And I definitely see your point though, that about that. So making sure that we're just being sure about that. And that's my opinion on it, is that that's their buy-in.
The one part I would say is if we have, and this is just to put this out in advance, so it's not when someone is standing up here. If we do have groups or individuals coming who are requesting food and simply state that they're requesting funding because of hardship or other pieces, that we don't ask the questions to articulate why that is a hardship. Just because that's not something I think we want to get into in that. So I just want to put that out there before someone's standing up here. Because in those situations, I think if someone is coming or a group is coming and explaining, because we do have a lot of students in areas and groups that may be a financial hardship for them, so I want us to be mindful. I think those would be those extenuating circumstances within it.
basically, we had a need in the past, and then that is a way participant can participate in the cost, and it spreads out, and in groups you can help with the budget, right? But it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Is there any?
We'll think about that for next week. Because it's once you set the precedent, it gets a little tricky to.
Eric?
And mostly my point was just for need. Because there are students that want to participate, but paying for food is that hindrance.
Is there any further public comment? Joey?
Just as a reminder, if anyone is interested in working with Eric on that subcommittee, please let him know, so that way he can reach out to you. And abstaining from the vote earlier does not mean you're not on the table for that.
Is there a motion on the table to adjourn? Patrick?
So moved.
Okay, Patrick moves, Eric seconds. Is there any discussion? See none. All those in favor of adjournment? All those opposed? Any abstaining? And with that, the motion passes and we adjourn at 6:32. See y'all next